Greetings, this is Artie from Artifact Electronics. So this is part 3 of my instant Atari Pinball collection. If you haven't watched the first and second episodes, they show the unpacking and some general theory of operations stuff. But here we actually got a machine that has been gone over, has been shopped, and is ready to play. Now let me emphasize that this is by no means a museum quality restoration. I did not want to spend that kind of time on this machine. The cabinet has a few things that need to be attended to. There are cosmetic issues that need to be fixed, but as a first pass, I wanted to get this machine up and running. Now, on the video, the lights kind of wash out things. They look really, really bright. But in real life, they're just right. It's got a beautiful back glass. The Playfield, the glass is pretty reflective. And that is partially my fault. And we'll talk about why that is so. But the Playfield came out very nicely, cleaned up, new rubber rings, things got adjusted, all the bulbs were replaced, flippers were adjusted, the displays are good on it, and overall, I'm very happy with this machine. So let's talk about this excessive reflectivity that this is displaying. So I think the reason why the Playfield is so reflective is I've actually bumped up the back box illumination. And the reason I did that is I wanted to show off the beautiful back glass in here, which with the original illumination wasn't really being lit up properly. So you can see there's no PCBs in the back, just 5 light bulbs. And originally the bulbs they used were these little 7.5 watt incandescent bulbs. And they didn't do the back glass any justice. Second of all, incandescents get warm, even 7.5 watt ones, and that's bad for the back glass because it makes it flake. So what I did was I bumped the lighting to 15 watts. They're 15 watt LEDs, which barely heat up, which hopefully will last forever, and which really light up the back glass very nicely. But unfortunately, they reflect off of the Playfield glass. But I think I'm going to leave things like this because the back glass looks so nice. So let's talk a bit about what this machine needed to be working properly. First, note the 2 prop rods here and here that are holding up the Playfield. And the significance of that is that most other pinball machines, if not all, have a single prop rod. Even wide body machines made by Bally, Williams, and Gottlieb had only a single prop rod. On this one, the manual cautions you to always use both of these to hold up the Playfield because it's really, really heavy and it will come crashing down if you only utilize one of them. So that'll give you an idea of the weight comparisons to other machines, even the Playfield itself. So in the last episode we had a quick look at how things are arranged inside the machine, and This is identical. It's got the main PCB, it's got the transformer assembly in the back, and the auxiliary power board. What was wrong with this was the auxiliary power board that delivers the plus minus 90 volts for the score display. The minus 90 volts was missing in it, and that was simply, it wasn't even a, yeah, it was one of the pre-driver transistors in the regulating circuit that was gone. I replaced that and the displays came right up. The socketed chip in the middle is the audio amp. That was out, so we weren't hearing any sound from it. And other than that, the auxiliary board didn't need anything, and at that point I was kind of getting a flickering display, so the display was operating, but it was displaying nonsense. If we look at this particular logic board, and again referencing back to the previous video, you can see two EEPROMs, and above the EEPROMs is where the other board had 8 bipolar PROMs in it. This board didn't even have sockets in it. It just had two 24-pin sockets with a non-standard pinout. But it turns out that with a very slight mod, you can use 2732s. It only has an address space of 4K, so the 2732s are only used at half capacity, but the mod was extremely simple. Cut out a resistor and ground a common point, and then you can just plug 2732s in it with very little fuss. And since the machines all use the same motherboard, it's very simple to interchange logic boards from one machine to another. Other than that, some of the solenoids weren't working, which are essentially grounded by those transistors. Where are they? Right there. There's two rows of transistors that essentially ground them. The interesting thing about the Atari boards is, even though you can install 20 driver transistors in there for solenoids, they made the board specific for each playfield, and they only stuffed the transistors that were used for a particular playfield. So even though you can exchange the boards, you may have to add some transistors if you're going to a machine that uses different solenoid driver lines to run them. Other than that, what else was there to do? Yes, also notice this board does not have the shunting resistor in the 5-volt regulator circuit, because this one has the EEPROMs, is using 2.6 amps, runs just fine without that resistor, and doesn't generate any extra heat. Nothing much to say about the regulator, except one of the quick connects, I think for the lamp circuitry, even though it was there, the quick connect on the bridge for the lamp voltage, it had a corroded connection, so it wasn't delivering 20 volts and I wasn't seeing any light bulbs. But that was simply a matter of finding which one wasn't making a connection, cleaning up the lug, and everything started to work just fine. Other than that, changing light bulbs. There was one of the kick-out hole solenoids over here was getting stuck, and that was because the coil had heated up so much that the coil sleeve had shrunk, and the plunger was getting stuck in it. I didn't even change the solenoid. All I did was I took out the old coil sleeve and put a new one in, which slid in rather easily, so there was nothing wrong with the coil, and that started to work correctly. Here's the back of the coin door, which is prominently missing the coin mechanisms. I do have some coin mechanisms, which I'll probably put in eventually, but for home use, this was set up for home use. Notice the red button right there. That basically simulated a coin drop. So you have that red button there, and it's wired to one of the coin switches down there. And when you hit the button, it coins up the game. I'll probably leave that because it's really convenient. Now remember, I complained about the PCB being open to foreign metallic objects separating from the playfield, such as nuts coming loose, washers, whatever, and falling down there, and worst case, shorting out things. Well, here is what it's supposed to be like. So there's a piece of plastic with instructions for adjustments that fits on top of those 4 corner brackets, and that will prevent things from, if things fall off the playfield, that will prevent them from doing bad things. Now I only, in my set of 6, I think I got 2 or 3 of these, but it's really not that difficult to get a piece of plastic, drill 4 holes into it, and then reproduce the instruction sheet and put it on there. And that will probably have to be done to some of the other machines. And again, you can see fuses galore in this machine. I mean, there's a bunch of fuses on the transformer assembly. Of course, we have all of the solenoid fuses. We have even more fuses here, which aren't all of the fuses aren't utilized at this point, but basically each lamp column is fused through here. So yeah, they didn't skimp on fuses either. They did skimp on the speaker, but you know, for the rather unsophisticated sounds this makes, it's probably sufficient. One other thing I need to say, I think I said in a previous video that I got 24 matching legs, or original legs for this, and I was completely wrong. The legs were kind of dirty when I first looked at them, and you couldn't really tell, but after going through the legs, I think this machine has a set of original legs on it, but the whole collection was a hodgepodge of legs from Bally machines, from all sorts of different machines. They weren't even all set. So I'm going to have to do, I got a bit of inconsistent legs. Well, this one, they are consistent, but they all need to be sanded down and repainted. And I'm going to have to try to find out what I'm going to do to get a full set of legs for all of the 6 machines, because it's amazing how horrible a machine looks if you put an unmatched set of legs on it. Well, since we have the glass off, let's take another look at the playfield, because the glass is gone, so you can probably see things a little bit better. I thought long and hard whether to convert all of the bulbs to LEDs, and I didn't. And the reason for that is, first of all, the bulbs I'm using, number 47 bayonet base bulbs, are a lot cheaper than LEDs. And when you put LEDs in these games, even though I put the LEDs behind the back glass, but when you put them on the playfield, to my eyes, it just doesn't look right. LEDs are too clean. Now there's one LED here that I had laying around, and that's behind the helmeted guy. And again, looking on it on the camera, you can't really see the difference between this and this. But again, in real life, you can kind of see the difference. The LEDs look too sterile, but that's just my opinion. But again, things came out pretty nicely. and everything works. So guess what? Let me find a good camera angle. Well, first of all, I got to put the glass back on, because playing a pinball machine without the glass, it's really loud. You can hear the ball rolling on the playfield, you can hear the solenoids pulling in, and it's actually annoying. With the glass on it, the glass dampens the sound just enough to make it a pleasure to play it, and it kind of enhances the tactile feedback you get when a solenoid pulls in, yet it's not loud enough to annoy you after a few minutes and make you want to leave the game. So I tried to find an angle where it's not too reflective, you can kind of see what's happening in the playfield, and I can still play the game. Because I've put it right in front of the playfield, it makes it very difficult, obviously. Well, you can't see the flipper here, so let's make some adjustments. Now keep in mind, this is a first generation solid state game, or a game that has a microprocessor in it. Has a total capacity of 4K of machine code for a 6800, and there really wasn't a whole lot I guess they could do with that kind of code. So the rule set is not what I would consider deep, but that's how the first generation machines were. Still trying to find a good angle here. Just trying to get the display in. And also we spoke about why Atari machines weren't that popular, and I think another thing that I didn't mention is, you know, they put the score display over there. So that doesn't really make sense, because you got to glance, you got to take your eyes, you got to take your eyes off the playfield to see the score, even if it's in the back. But I guess at that time everybody was so used to looking at the back glass for the score, and it was just unnatural to have to look on your right side to see the score. So I think that's another reason why people didn't really get into the Atari games very much. And Atari, starting with the Superman game, changed it and put the displays into the back box, but I guess things were too late. All right, here we go. No background music, just sound effects. Oh, nice. Play action is... I was going to say play action is really slow, because it drained on me, and it's not very impressive, but hey. Go in there. So after you get the drop targets down in front of the captive balls, then you need to hit the captive ball to hit the target behind it. Big money, big prizes. I gotta get it into those holes up there at least once. Yeah. And I got an extra ball. Part of the reason why the play action on this is relatively slow is because it's a wide body. there's too much space here. I mean, if these slingshots were closer to each other, you would get a lot faster action, but they tried to make a symmetrical playfield here, and in my opinion, they're just slightly too far apart. Oh, I'm playing my extra ball now. Only need the B up there. Oh, I spelled city. Oh, I can get another extra ball if I get it into the hole up there. Ha! Good, I got an extra ball. Maybe that'll give me a chance to get that B up there, which is really hard to get when the ball is in play already. Okay, this bulb in between the flippers may be out. It was supposed to show me that I had an extra ball. Wrong side. Yeah, the action is slower, but oh, that's doesn't prevent the ball from draining. So there you go. There's the display. And I hope you enjoyed playing that game. Enjoyed watching me play that game as much as I enjoyed actually playing it. But that's not all. I got Space Rider's twin brother or sister, or whichever way you want to look at it. He or she is also done. Cabinet on this one is actually a bit nicer than the one on the first one, so I was actually considering swapping playfields out and putting the nicer playfield in here. And this playfield has more, it's just kind of darker. I mean, it didn't clean up as nicely as the other one. It still looks pretty nice, but this one actually obviously saw more wear. Still very presentable. The backglass on this one is perfect, just like the other one. The biggest problem I have here is of a cosmetic nature, and that is all that tape residue. There's a lot of tape residue on the coin door. There's tape residue on different parts of the cabinet. And why didn't I just remove that, you may ask? It's because the damn stuff won't come off. I mean, it's like basically it's melded into the whatever surface it was on. Looks like somebody used duct tape to hold the coin door shut, and I don't know why there is tape residue on the side of the head, but you know, they probably put some notices or something on there. But this thing sat for a really, really long time, and what I suspect is part of the time it sat in the sun, and that just baked in the stuff. And I've tried and tried and tried all proven methods to do this, starting from glue gun, alcohol. I mean, you got to be careful on the wood because you don't want, you know, to damage the wood here. But I tried everything, and that stuff won't budge. And the way I really found that out is, see the 25-cent transparency in the middle? That was also covered with duct tape residue. And that piece actually came out from the coin door, and I worked on it. I essentially dunked it into a citrus solvent for hours and scraped it, and I used a magic eraser on it. I used anything you can possibly imagine. It took a lot of effort to get that off. So that kind of tells me that if I want to get the coin door clean, I'm going to have to sand it down. And if I want to get the cabinet clean, I'm also going to have to sand it down and repaint it. But just like on the other machine, I want to get this one ready to play and in halfway decent shape. So that's not going to happen right now. But, so 2 of the machines are ready to play. Number 2 and number 1. And things wouldn't be complete if I didn't try a game on this one too, to prove that yes, it does in fact work. Maybe, I don't know. I've spent all of my time on the other game, and I think this one worked, but let's find out. Remember, I needed the B last time? That's the first thing I went to on this game. You know what? This game plays faster. Why? It's got the same Playfield inclination. The backlash is rattling around. That was very impressive. Got a completed bike on top. That was not impressive. I gotta try that again. Yeah, this game is definitely playing faster. Can you do that? I can't repeat that. Holding the ball on the edge of the flipper. Well, at least it's on video. Oh, you offspring of a Coke machine. Yeah, I gotta secure that back glass. User error. keep in mind that there is a 6800 processor in here, but it runs at 800 kilohertz or 0.8 megs. So I think it's being taxed by having to update everything in real time, such as, solenoid response and all of that. And with all that said, it's still pretty impressive what they did with it. So after playing that last game, I realized, wait a minute, twins should be next to each other, especially identical twins, right? So I moved machine number 2 to the right of machine number 1, and here they both are, still working. You can also see that this pretty clearly shows that the playfield inclination on both of them is equal. So I don't know why this one on the right is a little faster. I gotta go measure solenoid voltages on this thing. So they still need a little bit of work. But all in all, brought back 2 machines from the dead. Of course, moving that machine over here was no trivial task because they're not very light. So let's have a look at what I use to ease the task of moving a machine on level ground. What I've been using are these things for years now. They're called pinball skates, and the way they work is the ends of them hook into the legs, and this expands. You press this button down and these pieces separate so they fit snugly into the legs, and then you use this lever to basically raise the machine onto the wheels and hook it into the side of the leg. You do that for the other 2 legs with the second set of pinball skates, and the machine becomes mobile. These are advertised as working equally well on standard body and wide body machines, and that was true. I've moved tens of machines with these. Of course, they only work on level ground, but I move things around in the basement a lot, and these were very, very useful. Of course, when I had to move machine number 2, I brought in the pinball skates, but they didn't work because they're not wide enough. Even when you open them up all the way, you pull these 2 pieces apart all the way, they're not wide enough to fit snugly into the legs. So that didn't work, and that tells you that a wide body isn't a wide body. These things, I mean, I haven't compared measurements, but obviously that proves that these machines are wider than any of the other wide body machines that are out there. So how did I move this machine so quickly? Took a trip to Harbor Freight to get these furniture movers. It's got 3 wheels underneath. Yeah, the wheels look really flimsy. They look like something you'd find on cheap office chairs and stuff like that. But surprisingly, they're not. I mean, these things are rated, let's see if it tells us, 180 pounds each. So I didn't really want to believe that, but it's true. You can, they're really smooth, and you can move even these heavy guys pretty easily with those. Now, of course, getting the machine on top of these is a different story, because you gotta lift the machine and then kind of push these things under the legs with your feet, but once they're in there, it's pretty good. But they did have one defect, and that is they have a very slight depression over here. I mean, it's like 1/32 of an inch deep or something. That whatever furniture you put on here, since this part's a little lower, it's supposed to hold the legs in here. So the furniture piece doesn't slide off when you're moving it, which is a bald-faced lie, because this hole is not deep enough, or this part isn't deep enough to securely hold the legs, especially the pinball legs. So you put the machine on 4 of these, 1 for each leg, and then as you start moving the machine, it happily starts sliding off this part. So what I did was I had these plastic equipment feet, I guess, and I just screwed them, 3 of them in here, so that the pinball legs fit right in the middle of these. And this does a pretty good job of preventing the pinball machine or whatever else you're moving to try to hop off this thing and self-destruct. So anyway, I used 4 of these, and it probably took longer to get the legs under the pinball legs than to actually move the machine into place. But yeah, Harbor Freight, $5 a piece. Lifetime warranty, I think. And they move really well on carpet. I mean, you would think, you know, you give them a little shove. Look at that. Well, let's see how long they last. I think if I use them on a few more Atari machines, that'll be the acid test. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the restoration of these classic pieces of pinball history. Leave me a comment and tell me what you think of this undertaking, if it was worth it or not. Thumbs up would be much appreciated. And make sure to subscribe, because we're about 2/3, 1/3 of the way there. We still got another 4 machines. And I'm working on them, and hopefully I'll get those up and running as soon as possible. See you soon. Here's what they look like with the ambient light turned off. It's cool. Maybe I'll bring down a cot here and sleep here so I can look at this when I wake up in the middle of the night. The world's most elaborate night lights.